The paradox of viruses. Are viruses the origin of life or the bringers of death? Despite their small size, parasites are no trivial matter. They are more abundant than all the living cells on our planet and more abundant than all the stars in the observable universe. If lined up side by side, they would more than cross our entire galaxy. In a single drop of water, there may be millions of them. They are present in the air, earth, and oceans, and are inside most living things most of the time. They can even live off other parasites, including other viruses. Viruses are like the parasitic vines that intertwine with all branches of the tree of life. But are they alive? And where did they come from? To answer these questions, we will take a look at what philosophy, molecular chemistry, and biochemistry have to say. Life is a process, not a substance, and viruses have evolved interdependently with cells for most, if not all, of that process. While viruses may have contributed to the emergence of life, they have definitely brought their fair share of death. Most common colds are the result of viral infections, and about 500,000 people die every year from the seasonal flu. While coronaviruses are multiplying in pandemic proportions, this only accounts for a tiny blip in virus numbers on our planet, and only a small increase in viral fatalities. The common flu has a fatality rate of about 0.1%, whereas the COVID-19 has a fatality rate of about 1%. But the last major pandemic, caused by a virus related to the common flu and similar to the more recent swine flu, had a fatality rate several times higher still. Spread during the end of the First World War, this flu infected over a third of the human population and killed over 50 million within just 2 years. This was more deaths than the entire war itself. The Spanish flu is a misnomer, and National Geographic reports that it may have also originated in China, spread by almost 100,000 labourers forced to work in appalling conditions near the battlefront. The bubonic plague, or Black Death, is perhaps the most infamous pandemic in Eurasian history and claimed the lives of over a third of the population in that part of the world. This pandemic was likely caused by a bacteria, not a virus, that also originated in China or Central Asia. All living things have some sort of immunity to viral infections, even viruses. The human immune system is a finely orchestrated and incredibly complex process almost beyond belief. But sometimes these defenses get overwhelmed. Ironically, most fatalities from COVID-19 result from the human immune system carpet bombing the lungs in a desperate attempt to destroy the hidden insurgents. Viruses are experts in subterfuge, and some overzealous immune systems are willing to self-inflict heavy casualties to regain control. It is known as the cytokine storm. Viruses put strong selection pressures on all species to adapt or die. They lubricate the gears of evolution. But due to language, culture, and self-consciousness, Homo sapiens have become expert adapters. Just as viruses adapt to infect more cells, humans adapt to exploit more resources from the cell we call planet Earth. We are even considering colonizing other planets and mining our moon. Such exponential growth is called an outbreak and occurs when a population exceeds the limits of its environment. For example, amoebas placed on a petri dish of nutritious goo will reproduce exponentially until they consume all the available resources. Successful species colonizing new environments often do the same. They reproduce until they run out of resources. Then the population plummets. While the coronavirus population has spiked in recent months, it will inevitably begin to fall when enough people have immunity and it becomes difficult to spread. The resource of virgin hosts without immunity will have been overexploited. Similarly, humans will eventually have tapped all the accessible resources on our planet. Less than 100 years ago, the human population reached 2 billion people. Now, our children, or our children's children, will come into a world of almost 10 billion people. What then? If the history of all outbreaks is anything to go by, the population will then decline. Maybe we will be the one exception in biology, but are we really that special? On the most fundamental level, are we so different from parasites? It is only natural that we are curious about where life came from and where the coronavirus came from. But it is a Pandora's box of mysteries that, if understood correctly, will leave you with more questions than answers. Are you ready to open the box? Are viruses the origin of life or the bringers of death?